Jazzcast Pros.
There are certain items that you get as a kid that are just like so exciting and just make you feel like you have won the lottery because you've received whatever this cool item is. I remember in 5th grade for my birthday, I got the Spice Girls CD. I remember in 5th grade when I got my first Tamagotchi. I remember in middle school when I got my first pair of Guess shoes. They were so uncomfortable. But it's things like that that are a status symbol, especially at a point when you're in middle school and high school. And if you have been around any tweens or teens or millennial moms lately, then you know what a Stanley is. And what used to be for blue-collar workers is now for everybody. And that's what we're going to talk about today in today's Power Move series episode. We're going to be talking about the brand Stanley and how full circle they have come and how they have really, they were around for over 100 years before they became a TikTok craze. And so we're going to talk about the history of Stanley, what they're doing right now, why they are in this Power Move series, and then what us as solopreneurs can learn from them. Because it's not just about the water bottle itself. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the current or aspiring solopreneur, navigate the messy middle so you can make both an income and an impact. Hi, I'm Rashawn, and I love creating safe spaces for women to be courageous in their dreams. After spending a decade working in sales for a startup and talking with hundreds of other women entrepreneurs, I know it can be lonely, but you can do this. So pull up a seat. This is High Vibe Table Talks. As I was doing research for this episode, what came to mind was Malcolm Gladwell's book called The Tipping Point that I read quite a few years ago. He is just such an interesting and existential thinker that if you ever need a book that makes you turn everything that you think about on its head, read a Malcolm Gladwell book, whether it's Freakonomics or Tipping Point or How to Make Friends with Strangers. They're all really interesting. But in The Tipping Point, he was specifically talking about the footwear, the Hush Puppies. And they were an outdated shoe brand from the 1950s. And they were just kind of meh. Middle-aged men had them. And then all of a sudden they started popping up in people's wardrobe in the 90s in New York City. And then a few cool people were seen wearing them. I guess it was in the Soho district. And it was like a spark was lit. Sales skyrocketed. And what's crazy is that the company didn't change anything, but something about our culture did. And so Stanley is having their Hush Puppies moment. Not only have they become this totally different phenomenon and they're speaking to a totally different demographic, they're leaning into it. And also what I love talking about in a lot of my calls is the ripple effect. For my ripple effect, I like to help women entrepreneurs, specifically those who have ADHD, lean into the things that they care deeply about and the impact they can make in the world. And my ripple effect is then the people they get to go serve. And so Stanley's become a phenomenon, and then all these other companies are like, well, how do I lean into that? And so it's this ripple effect of other companies that are becoming more successful, having a boom, being creative, and kind of riding the wave that is the Stanley craze. And so Stanley was actually originally founded in 1913, and they had a goal to make a vacuum insulated steel bottle that could keep coffee hot all day. It was really for factory workers, blue collar workers, mine workers. It had to be durable. You wanted something to be temperature controlled all day. Nothing is worse than you want to go take a sip of hot coffee and it's cold. And so it really was built for job sites, for camping, for places where it's going to get knocked around. It's going to, tumble. It's going to be knocked down. Obviously in 1913 and for decades, there was no such thing as social media. So it wasn't about being cool. It was about being durable and having this job to have a really great carrier for hot and cold products on sites that are going to be a little bit more intense. So what switched? What kind of flipped to bring Stanley into where it is today? It was actually 2020 Stanley introduced a new product called the Quencher, which is a 40-ounce tumbler with a straw and a handle. I happen to have my daughters right in front of me. I didn't think about it when I was setting up for this episode, but they actually did a collaboration with a blog called The Buy Guide, run by a group of moms. And once this water bottle was on the Buy Guide, it sold out immediately. And it was from a group of moms, and they just found the right product and the right people to push it out in the right environment that was, I mean, think about like 2020 and just a lot of us were trying to connect over social media because that was all we had. I mean, TikTok, I think, really hit this. It's another one that it just hit at the right moment of like people needed a space to connect and get out their creativity, and they had a lot of time on their hands. And so TikTok blew up. And so there are things like the Stanleys that blew up as well. We were laughing about it. I got together with some college girlfriends, and like I never had a water bottle in elementary school, middle school. I might have like had some plastic water bottles that I brought like to lunch or to practice or whatever in high school. But like it wasn't a thing to have like your water bottle. In college, I had like this Nalgene water bottle that said like phys ed on it, and I loved it. And a lot of people had Nalgene water bottles, but you had like one and you carried it around, and it wasn't like a thing. It wasn't a status symbol. And, you know, part of why I had my Nalgene water bottle is because I was a phys ed major. So a lot of classes that I took, you literally were sweating in class. So like having a water bottle was just important. And so it's just wild to think about like how much more hydrated we are as a society now versus back then, but also like what a statement that a water bottle is in today's society. You know, it really did start with this like niche of, you know, blue collar workers, campers, and they created a product that worked really, really well for them. And then a group of influencers found it and fell in love with it and said, you should buy it. And, you know, I have a mixed relationship with influencers as far as not that I think they hold an important space. And this is kind of going on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important to talk about how I think the influencers hold a space to say, hey, I want to build a relationship with you that you can trust me. And when I promote these products, it's because like I use them. And so I think that there's a lot of people out there that are doing it the right way for the right reason and doing like really creating bonds with their community over like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm only going to use something that I don't use. Of course, on the other side of that, there are people who get brand deals and get paid a ton of money to promote things that they don't use, that aren't good, that they're just in it for the money. And so there is kind of the other side of that. From the consumer perspective, it does create I already have too much stuff. Like just getting back to like a reusable water bottle of Stanley, like in reality, you need one, maybe two, and people have cupboards and cupboards full of them. They go to Target and line up and knock people out of the way to get these water bottles that they already, like they don't have an actual need for them. And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't like indulge yourself, but they're also, people put themselves in a lot of debt over things that they don't need, but they just have this compulsion to just buy more. I need more. I went on a bit of a tangent there, but just like in anything, there's a good side and there's a bad side. I think that creating that trust, and not just from like advertisers like, oh, you should buy this because I've put millions of dollars into making this ad look really pretty. It's like, no, I use it and this is what it looks like on my skin tone, in my life, on my body shape, but also it can create that like fear of missing out, and I need to consume more. So that's my philosophy on influencers. But as far as Stanley, the company, they leaned into it and said, okay, you know, if we can get people on TikTok to say, this is great, let's lean into it. And so we're not just selling to this niche market that is blue collar workers or campers, you know, because let's call it for what it is. Blue collar workers and campers aren't buying cupboard full of Stanleys. They're like, this is my Stanley. This is what I bring coffee in. This is what I take camping. This keeps my coffee warm. Like, they're not going to be those types of people that typically, I'm generalizing, overconsume. And so Stanley really let the brand evolve into something that people could make their own and have fun with, like in a place like TikTok. And so Stanley did become a status symbol and an aesthetic and a way that people could like have fun with something that can typically be a little bit boring. And I will also say, like, I am guilty. I've never bought a Stanley, but my daughter has like 3 Stanleys from other people that she's gotten them. And then we have like Stanley knockoffs from Walmart and everything. And so there are days where our dishwasher, the bottom rack is just washing big water bottles. Between Stanleys, the other brands, you know, we get home from a lacrosse tournament and we brought 3 or 4 water bottles because she was playing in 4 games. So I'm not saying that to be like, look at me on my high horse and I never participate in Stanley and I don't buy fast fashion. Like, I'm not trying to say it from that at all. Like, I just showed you, I have a Stanley and it has a charmer too on top, a straw thing, but that is for a different reason. Actually, this exact Stanley, my daughter went to go drink out of it. I think this was last summer. She went to go drink out of it, and literally in the straw part of it was not like a small, it was a large spider. It was so big. And so now we don't have any water bottles that have straws in our house that don't have toppers because like it's a real fear. Anyways, that's a really good tangent because Stanley said, okay, all of these people are buying this thing. And so how can we lean into it? Really lean in and say, like, if this is going to be a TikTok craze, like, what else can we try? And so different colors, special editions, partnering so that you have a Harry Potter Stanley, you have a Caitlin Clark Stanley, you have a Lululemon Stanley. I don't know what kind of Stanleys there are, but like really partnering with companies that could be like, oh, you have this limited edition one, you know, the toppers, and like those are all over. You can buy, I'm sure, Stanley ones, but we went into the paper store the other day and they had a whole display of all the different types of toppers that people have, and they have like all these Taylor Swift toppers, and they have, you know, again, just playing into the things that are crazes currently. Again, part of it's like, do you really need to have like a drawer full of Stanley toppers? And that'll be the last thing I'll say about like overconsumption in this country, which I do think is an issue. But like, it also creates like this way to say something about who you are and what you like. And like, the Swiftie in me sees the Swiftie in you when you have a Taylor Swift topper, which is like cool. It's just kind of like fun. Like, you get to be so creative. And like, when I wake up in the morning and I have a cup of coffee, I take out the coffee mug that speaks to how I feel that day. And when I have like my reusable coffee mug, it has like my name stenciled and it has like a lacrosse coach thing, and it has like some plant stickers and like empower women sticker. So people like just seeing that get a bit of a vibe of who I am. And this is just another way to do it, which I think is cool. So again, like the sticker craze, I mean, at lacrosse tournaments, they're just like throwing out stickers because it has their brand, and they know that kids are going to attach them to things like their Stanley water bottle. For Easter, my daughter got a Stanley carrier. And so it's this like strap, and it has the thing that's perfectly shaped like a Stanley, and it sits in. So you're not, because this thing is not light, and you're like lugging this around. And to be honest, the design is not great because it's not like you can throw your Stanley in your purse because it's going to spill everywhere. You can't throw it in your athletic bag, your gym bag, because it's going to spill everywhere. And it's heavy. And so you put it in your little carrier and now you have your hands free, and that can have stickers, that can have patches, that can have a saying, that can have your name, that can have so many different things on it. And I'm sure that like places like Etsy or, oh my God, what was that engraving store in the mall that I used to like anytime it was like someone's anniversary or something like that, it would be like, oh, let me go to something engraved. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Now it's Etsy or something else, but you know, the personalization of your Stanley, like this is my Stanley. They have made ice cube trays where the ice cube perfectly fits like the shape of the Stanley so that you can put it in there and then fill it up and all your water is cold. You know, my daughter's still big into Barbies. And so the Barbies have Stanleys and the Barbie Stanleys have stickers and the Barbie Stanleys have Stanley toppers. And it seeps into all these different aspects of people's lives and people's interests and people's ways that they express themselves. And, you know, just like with the Crocs, like the Crocs became big and then it was all the little widgets. And I don't know if that's what they're called, but it's like the little things that you stick in the Croc holes. And so it's just a way to like show your personality through something that also has like the status symbol attached to it. You know, Stanley didn't create any of these things. Quencher did. But Stanley leaned in and said, here's this wave. I'm not going to sit on the beach like a crotchety old man saying, get off my lawn. Like, I'm going to ride it with what is society today and say, all right, here we go. There was also like that, a car accident or a car fire, and like everything in the car burned up except the Stanley. And I think Stanley like bought that person a new car. And like how many other people bought Stanleys because of that horrible thing that happened. But then also Stanley was like, and we're going to make your life better. You know, it was a good deed and it was a PR move. Let's call it, you know, what it is. And they took a long time in the beginning to develop a piece of glassware that can withstand something like that, because that really was the point of it in the beginning, is to get through these really difficult situations like being a coal miner, being a factory worker, going camping where you are in the middle of nowhere and, you know, are just much more rugged on your stuff. And so they created this thing that is very durable, not realizing what it was going to have to be durable through or who it was going to have to be durable for. So that's what Stanley has done and is doing really, really well. So what can solopreneurs learn about the craze that is Stanley's? It is an interesting thing to think about fads, because you don't want to latch on to every single fad. You don't want to latch on to, oh, this is the next big thing. And this lesson isn't going to be wrapped up in a nice little bow, because it's kind of like, do this and that. So it's like, listen to trends, listen to things that are important, listen to things that are crazes. Don't put all of your eggs in that basket. Make sure you do stay true to who you are, but can you find a fun, creative way to play into something that you do really well that would market towards maybe this fad or craze or thing that is top of mind to a lot of people right now? It's just kind of like not having your head buried so deep in the sand when it comes to something like trends. I think what it comes down to is that following trends isn't about changing or evolving or developing your product differently. Like the Stanley mug keeps your water cold for a long time. It could keep your coffee warm for a very long time. They didn't change that to become who they are, but their marketing evolved when they became popular. And so it's not that like, oh, I'm going to change this because this is the new trend. It's like, I'm going to tweak the Taylor Swift lyrics to what I have to do because they're really big on TikTok at the moment. And so it's just kind of keeping your ear to the ground around what is in right now and how can I market that towards what I already do really, really well. as I always say, be open to pivoting. Stanley didn't set out to be cool, to be trendy, to be hip, to be like a teen, tween, millennial mom, like trend. But they did something really, really well and saw that those groups were interested in it. And so our culture said, this is really cool. We want more of this. And they said, here you go. Here's more of it. And again, you don't have to start the trend to benefit from it. Like, as I was talking about before, there's a lot of ripple effects. So if you see that these Stanleys are really big, like, create stickers for it. That Cory Booker moment was like really impactful for me. And I think it was impactful for a lot of people. And so sticker companies and t-shirt companies and all the different Etsy shop owners said, I want to lean into that because it's something that was important to me. And so my community is going to love that I have a t-shirt that has Cory Booker's face on it, or that quote that Cory Booker said towards the end. And so you don't have to start the trend to benefit from it. You can be a part of those ripple effects, and that's okay. So I don't think that, one of those things like, it wasn't in my bingo card. I'm sure that Stanley selling out of a cup that had a straw that isn't even really beneficial for workplaces, factory workers, wasn't on their bingo card for 2020. But they saw it happen. They followed the clues. They had that 80-20 rule. I'm sure that they were like, hey, let's try it. And if it fails, well, it happened. And it didn't fail. It created a spark. It turned into a movement. And Stanley said, okay, let's do this. And they just allowed themselves to really lean into that market. I hope this was beneficial. I'm really enjoying making this series. I have 2 episodes left in the series. We're getting through September. I wanted to really lean into this summer, being like, I'm going to record when I can and not put too much pressure on myself to have these guest episodes where we have to make sure that our times line up. It's like, okay, tonight my daughter's at lacrosse camp, so here I am recording. This has been really fun. So we have 2 more episodes in the series, and then we're going to get back to guest episodes starting in September. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.